Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and today I'm going to be doing my November TBR. A few days late, it's November 4th now, but I've been, one reason or the other, got put off or whatever. So, better late than never. Here we are. Let's get into it. So, first up is a series that I have been wanting to get to for quite a bit and was kind of throwing it around. And then Patrick from Novel Notions, he commented and was like, absolutely read this series before the author's next book comes out in May. So I am reading Malice, and I worked it out to where if I read 25 pages a day, I will have finished whatever the 7th book is, or the most recent book, the day before the Shadow of the Gods comes out, which is a completely separate series, so it's not totally necessary. But I'm about 125 pages in right now, and this series is awesome so far. It's a little confusing because you have quite a few viewpoints from the get-go, and they're all fairly intermingled, but it's hard to figure out how they all piece together as far as how they relate to each other. I think there's 4 or 5 different viewpoints, and I think it gets quite a bit where you later in the series where you have quite a bit that you do need to kind of keep track of. But this is a Norse inspired fantasy. It's very, people say very tropey because it's focuses very much on good versus evil. And I think throughout the series there's I think it says it here, basically the world gets decided by 2 champions, the Black Sun and the Bright Star. There's apparently a super awesome wolf animal companion in this. I haven't been introduced to it yet, but I'm super stoked because wolves are awesome. So next book is The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. This is the Shelf Space Book Club Book of the Month, and really excited. This is a self-published book, but it's been making major waves in BookTube in general. I haven't heard anybody other than Ben from Ben's Blurb say anything negative about this book. I don't know a ton about this book. I know it follows a woman, her son, and the boy's father, or her husband. And from what I understand, they come from they're like the super master swordsmen of this empire. One of the blurbs or whatever on the back says it's the Poppy Wars Darkness meets The Last Airbender's elemental magic. I think they make swords made out of ice, and normally little blurbs on the back I completely ignore because 99 or 90% of the time it's this meets Game of Thrones. But since this is a self-published book, I'm a little more inclined because I assume it's the author that put that on there, so it's probably fairly accurate. Also, speaking of Patrick, he's got a little blurb on the back says it's just the most intense book he's ever read. So I'm really excited about this. I'm finding I enjoy books with older protagonists, more in my age range, much more than like the young child that's like the chosen one or whatever. Like, I've enjoyed following these almost has-been characters. Last month was a disaster, and I think across the board, almost everybody either didn't read a lot of books for one reason or another, or they did read books and didn't like them, from what I've been seeing from people's wrap-ups and things like that. I was in the first camp of not being able to read a lot. Part of that was I tried to read The Eye of the World, and I have started that book quite a few times, and basically rehashing that beginning part where they're in two rivers didn't grab me, didn't get me excited about the book. So rather than switching to another book, I just tried to force myself to read it. And now I'm about halfway through. Once the Trollocs show up, it kind of did the trick. I was able to start. It was a little more exciting. But part of that was I reached a point where I was kind of like in a slump. And the thing that pulled me out was Iron Gold. This is the first book in the second trilogy of Red Rising. And I'm doing the audiobooks with these. And they are fantastic, especially now with this one, because this series, the second trilogy, follows multiple perspectives rather than just Darrow's. And with that, there's a different actor narrating for each part. And so I'm 75% of the way done with this right now. And then I'm just going to go straight into Dark Age, which is the next book. And this is fairly brutal. Like, it's a sci-fi book by all means, but like, it's super grimdark. Like, people just straight up get killed, and it's nobody's. There's, as of right now, there's not really a heroic person. So, I'm really enjoying this. It definitely pulled me out of the slump. I was able to, once I kind of started getting into this, I was like, cool, I'm ready to start reading. That actually is what helped me continue reading Wheel of Time. Now we're going to get into the new releases for this month that I'm going to be reading. The first up comes out next Tuesday, and that is Fires of Vengeance. This is the second book in the Burning series. It's a sequel to Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons is fantastic. This is probably one of my favorite books of the year, probably easily top 10, and honestly, from what I've been hearing from early reviews of the Fires of Vengeance, this will be my probably 2 of the top 10 books I've read this year. If you are a fan of action movies or anything like that, this is the book for you. This is so good, so good. And from what I've heard, Fires of Vengeance is very much the same. Not like sequels to action movies where they kind of aren't as good. This is very much picks up where this one left off and just runs for the hills and is great. So like I said, that comes out on the 10th. And pretty much the plan is to finish that within a week, because November 17th is when Rhythm of War, the book that I have been anticipating all year long, every video, Brandon Sanderson gets mentioned, and this is why. This entire year has built up to this moment. Man, I hope this book is good. Rhythm of War, it's the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive. I just finished my reread of the Stormlight Archive, and so I'm primed and ready for book 4. I've got some theories of what's going to happen. I haven't read any of the preview or the early release chapters or audiobook or anything like that. I've heard a little bit of like the prologue and the first chapter that was released, but other than that, haven't looked into anything other than that. I may start sooner than later, but as you can see, I've got tons of books to read. Speaking of Stormlight Archive, I backed the Kickstarter for The Way of King's Leatherbound, and because of that, I believe the anticipated release for Dawnshard, the novella that goes between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, is coming out tomorrow, the 5th, for backers. And so I may end up picking that up almost immediately and try to finish that before Rhythm of War releases as well. Once Rhythm of War does release, everything's getting dropped. That is the focus. I'm going to try to finish that by the end of the month as well. It gives me about 100 pages a day or so, which is pretty fast-paced, but it's a Stormlight Archive, and it's my favorite series, so probably fairly doable. So there you have it. Those are the books that I'm reading this month in November. Let me know down in the comments what you're reading. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have not already, I'm JJ the Bearded Bookworm, and I'll see you next time.